Your objective for lesson 8 is I will find the area of a rectangle through multiplication of the side lengths. So we're going to work with area models today and multiplying the side lengths to find the area. And we're also going to be working on finding an unknown side length whenever they give us the area and another side length. So you will need to have your board ready if you don't have that ready. Okay, so when you look at this array template on the screen, how many rows are there in the incomplete array? And the reason it's incomplete is because you see all this white space and there are not unit squares in there. So on your board, I want you to write how many rows are in this rectangle. Play when you're ready to check it. Okay, so you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So how many unit squares are there in each row? I want you to write that on your board and push play whenever you're ready to check. You can tell just from this top row how many squares would be in each row, and there are 7 in this top row, so that means that there are 7 squares in each row. So do we really need to complete this entire array to find the area of the rectangle? And the answer to that is no, because we've learned before that if we know one side length and we know the other side length of the rectangle, all we will have to do is multiply those two side lengths to find the area. So on your board, I want you to write the multiplication equation that we can use to find the area of this rectangle. Whenever you're ready to check that, push play. The equation that I'm looking for is 4 times 7 equals 28. So if we were to finish filling in this rectangle right here, there would be 28 unit squares, and the area of this rectangle is 28. Okay, moving on. This right here is an area model. If you remember from the last lesson that we did, it doesn't have any squares in it. It's just a blank rectangle, but it gives us the side lengths, so it's called an area model. So based on this rectangle, do we have enough information to find the area even without all of the grid lines and the squares inside of it? Yes, we do have enough information because it gives us the side lengths of the rectangle. So on your board, I want you to write the multiplication equation that we can use to find the area of this rectangle. And I want you to write down the area of the rectangle on your board as well. Push play whenever you're ready to check it. Okay, so the multiplication equation that we were looking for is 6 times 8 equals 48. So the area was 48 square centimeters. Make sure you have the square with it because if this was filled up, there would be different squares in it, and they're all centimeter squares. Okay, our next rectangle, we don't know the area, but we do know both side lengths. So once again, write the multiplication equation that you would use to find the area of this rectangle, and also write down what the area of this rectangle is, and push play whenever you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so the multiplication equation that you would use to find this area of this rectangle is 5 times 9 is 45. And the area that you should have written on your board was 45 square centimeters. So I think that we're pretty good now on being able to find the area of a rectangle just by multiplying the side lengths. Next, we're going to move on to finding what an unknown side length is, and we did this in the last lesson. So write a multiplication equation on your board to show how to find the area of this rectangle. Use a question mark for the unknown side lengths. So some of you may say, oh, I already know what the unknown side length is, but since it's not given to us on the rectangle, whenever you write the multiplication equation, I do want you to use a question mark for this unknown side length. So go ahead and on your board write a multiplication equation that we would use to find the unknown side length, and make sure you're using a question mark for the other part or the other number in the multiplication equation besides 3. Whenever you're ready to check it, push play. Okay, so we would have 3 times question mark equals 27 because we know that it's going to be equal to 27 because it already gave us the area. So we have to find out what is the value of the question mark and what is the unknown side length. So the way that we have to think of this now is what can you multiply 3 by to get 27? And that's where division comes in play. And we have to think of a division equation. So now I want you to write the related division equation on your board that would go with this. And I want you to use a question mark for what the unknown side length is. And remember, since we're working with the related division equation, your division equation is going to have the exact same numbers as your multiplication equation. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, I want you to push play. Okay, so the related division equation would have been 27 divided by 3 equals question mark because we're not sure what that is. So now on your board, I would like for you to write down what is the question mark. What does that question mark stand for? What is the other side length for our rectangle? Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you can push play. Okay, so the unknown side length is 9 centimeters. And the reason that we know that is because we know that 3 times 9 is 27. And if you're still to the point where you're not sure because you don't know your facts as well, you're still going to have to go back and you're still going to have to use the strategies of an array or equal groups to help you find unknown side lengths when we're working with area. Because area is a lot like multiplication. So you've got to make sure that you know those facts, or if you don't know your facts, that you're using the strategies that we learned when we worked on multiplication to help you solve problems when we're working in this module. Okay, so we're probably not going to do everything that it says right here on this page, but I probably am going to have you write down the multiplication equation and the division equation when we're working with these types of rectangles. So once again, we know one side length and we know the area is 32 square centimeters. So on your board, I do want you to write a multiplication equation to find the area, and I want you to use a question mark for what the unknown side length is. So you've got everything you need right here to be able to write your multiplication equation. I want you to push play whenever you're ready to check it. Okay, so the multiplication equation is 4 times question mark equals 32 because we need to know what we multiply 4 by to get 32. Okay, this time whenever you write your related division equation, I want you to go ahead and put the answer for what this question mark is supposed to be. So whenever we're dividing 32 and 4, what is that equal to? What can you multiply 4 by to get 32? So whenever you're writing your division equation on your board this time, don't include a question mark. I want you to go ahead and include the answer of what this side length actually is for this rectangle. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you may push play. Okay, so the division equation was 32 divided by 4 equals 8, because we know that whenever we multiply 4 and 8 together, we get 32. If you didn't know that just off the top of your head, I hope that you used equal groups or an array or some type of strategy to help you figure that out. So the unknown side length of this rectangle was 8 centimeters. Okay. Now we're on to another one where they gave us one side length and they gave us the area. And this time on your board, I'm going to let you do both steps together instead of separately. So go ahead and on your board, write your multiplication equation and make sure you're using a question mark for the unknown side lengths. And I also want you to write the related division equation on your board without using the question mark and going ahead and putting what does this question mark actually stand for in your division equation. And then also on your board, write down what is this side length right here. So there's going to be 3 things that you're writing on your board. The multiplication equation, the division equation that relates to this multiplication equation, and writing down what is the unknown side length of this rectangle. Whenever you're ready to check it, I want you to push play. Okay, so the multiplication equation that I was looking for was 8 times question mark equals 24 because we're not sure what that other side length is. And our division equation is 24 divided by 8 equals 3. And this 3 tells us that is the other side length because we know that when we multiply 8 and 3 together, we get 24. So the unknown side length that you needed to write on your board was 3 centimeters. And if you put cm for centimeters without spelling it out, that's okay as well. Okay, so when you know the area in one side length of a rectangle, how can you find the other side length? Okay, so I want you to ask yourself that and I want you to think about what that answer is. When we know the area and we know what one side length is, how can we find the other side length? You don't have to write this answer on your board. I just want you to be thinking about what is the answer to this question. Okay, well, we can think of it as a multiplication equation with a missing factor, just like what we did where we put the question marks. That was our missing factor. We didn't know what that was. Or we can divide the area and the known side length. So the area could be 24 and one side length could be 8, and all we would have to do is divide those together to figure out what the other side length is. So as long as you know how to do those two things, it will help you on the problem set that we're about to do. Okay, we're going to start on the problem set, so if you need to push pause and get that out and get that ready, you can do that now. Okay, so we have a lot of rectangles on this page. Some of them give you both side lengths without the area, and some of them give you one side length and the area, and it's missing a side length. So we're going to go ahead and look at number 1. Okay, so for part A on number 1, we know that one side length is 4 feet and we know that the other side length is 7 feet, but we're not sure what the area is. But we've learned in previous lessons that all we have to do is multiply the side lengths of a rectangle to find the area. And notice up in the directions it says write a multiplication sentence to find the area of each rectangle. So on these lines for A, B, and C, we're also going to be writing the multiplication equation that we use to find the area. Okay, so for number 1, we know that on the line we're going to be writing 4 times 7. So make sure you go ahead and put that because that is what the side lengths are. And now I want you to write down what is the answer to 4 times 7, and I also want you to write that right here on this rectangle because that's what the area of this rectangle is going to be. Push play whenever you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so I know that 4 times 7 is 28, so that tells me that the area of this rectangle is 28 square feet since we are working with feet, and if this rectangle was filled, it would be filled with 28 squares. So now I want you to go ahead and complete B and C on your own. Make sure you're writing the multiplication equation that you're using to find the area for both of these rectangles. And make sure you're writing what the area of these rectangles are inside the rectangles. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you may push play. Okay, so the multiplication equation for rectangle B was 8 times 7 equals 56. So that tells me that the area of this rectangle is 56. The multiplication equation for rectangle C was 6 times 6 equals 36. So the area of this rectangle is 36 square feet. Okay, we're going to move on to number 2, where they give us the area on these rectangles, but we are missing a side length. And if you look at the directions, it says write a multiplication sentence and a division sentence to find the unknown side lengths for each rectangle. And it doesn't tell us here to use any question marks. So whenever we're writing our multiplication sentence and our division sentences, we're going to have all of the numbers in those equations. So I'm going to do A with you, and then I'm going to let you work on B and C. So I know that the area is 72, and I know that one side length is 9, but I'm not sure what the other side length is. So I'm asking myself right now, what am I going to multiply 9 by to get 72? So whenever we're writing our multiplication equation, this is what I want you to put because I know that 9 times 8 equals 72. And this 8 right here tells me that this side length is also going to be 8 feet. So now I'm going to work with these exact same numbers and I'm going to write a division equation. And I know that it's kind of just turned around whenever I'm writing my division equation, but it has to equal what this side length was. So my division equation was 72 divided by 9 is equal to 8. So I want you to go ahead and work on B and C yourself. Whenever you're ready to check those answers, you may push play. Okay, so for rectangle B, the equations were 3 times 5 equals 15, and the division equation was 15 divided by 3 equals 5, so our missing side length was 5 feet. For rectangle C, our equations were 7 times 4 equals 28, and our division equation was 28 divided by 4 equals 7. On your multiplication equations, it is okay if you had 5 times 3 right here, and it's okay if you had 4 times 7, but your division equations did need to look like these because your division equation needed to be equal to what the missing side length was. But on your multiplication equation, it was okay if the factors were in a different order. Okay, moving on to number 3. I covered up the grid on my paper because it already shows the answer, but you've got a blank grid on your paper and you need to draw a rectangle in that grid that has an area of 42 square inches because the grid below is made out of square inches. I know that it looks kind of small, but they just made it smaller to fit on the paper. So think about what two side lengths are you going to need to make 42 square inches. So what two numbers can you multiply together that are going to give you 42 that are going to fit on this grid? So go ahead and draw that rectangle. It also says on the very end of this to label the side lengths. So we're working with square inches, so make sure that whenever you're labeling the side lengths that you're labeling them with inches because that's what we're working with on this grid. So I want you to go ahead and draw what the rectangle would look like and make sure that you're labeling the side lengths whenever you do that. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you may push play. Okay, so your rectangle could have looked like this. You didn't have to do the skip counting, I just did that so it would fit. Um, your rectangle may have also been turned differently, like the way that this is, it could have just been turned where it was going up and down, where one side length was 7 and the top side length was 6. As long as you have it labeled with 6 inches and 7 inches, then you were correct. And this was about the only way that you could have made 42 square inches was using 6 and 7 inches as your side lengths. Okay, we're going to move on to the back side of the problem set. Number 4 says Ursa draws a rectangle that has side lengths of 9 centimeters and 6 centimeters. What is the area of the rectangle and explain how you found your answer? I want you to use an area model. And remember, whenever you're using an area model, your rectangle is not going to have all the squares in it. You're just going to draw a blank rectangle, but you're going to label the side lengths. And then I want you to make sure that you're writing a sentence that tells me what the area of the rectangle is. And then I also want you to make sure that you're explaining how you found your answer. And think about how we find the area of rectangles whenever they give us both side lengths. What do we normally do to find the area? And that's how you're going to explain how you found your answer. So there's 3 things I'm looking for on this problem. An area model where you're drawing the rectangle and you're labeling the side lengths. I'm looking for a sentence that tells the area of the rectangle, and in your sentence, I'm also looking for how you explained how you found your answer. So when you have those three things ready, I want you to push play so you can check your answer with me. Okay, so I was looking for this rectangle, very similar. If you had this side labeled 9 centimeters and this side labeled 6 centimeters, that's fine. Your rectangle may have just been turned to where it actually looked like that, because you wouldn't want to have both sides lengths being the same length if one side was 6 centimeters and one side is 9 centimeters. Since 9 centimeters is longer, it wouldn't be the same size as 6 centimeters. So this is what I was looking for in the area model. And the sentence that I used is the area of Ursa's rectangle is 54 square centimeters. Make sure that you didn't just put 54, or make sure that you didn't just put 54 centimeters. You need to have square centimeters. If you abbreviated that, that's still okay. It's still correct. And then I found my answer by using 9 times 6 equals 54. And that's really all I was looking for, because we know that whenever we're given two side lengths, all you have to do is multiply the side length. So if your answer in your drawing is similar to mine, then you're correct. If not, you need to make sure that you're correcting it. Okay, moving on to number 5. Eliza's bedroom measures 6 feet by 7 feet. Her brother's bedroom measures 5 feet by 8 feet. Eliza says their rooms have the same exact floor area. Is she right? Why or why not? So once again, you need to draw a picture, which is going to be an area model. And we're talking about two different rectangles here, so I'm going to be looking for two different rectangles, and make sure on both rectangles that you have the side lengths labeled. Make sure you're answering the question of, is Eliza right? And then you also need to make sure that you tell me why or why not. Whenever you have those things finished on your paper, you may push play to check your answer. Okay, so here are the two area models I was looking for, and once again, it's okay if yours was flip-flopped and you had the 6 and the 7 and the 5 and the 8 in a different place, but that's what I was looking for. And to answer the question of, is she right, why or why not? No, she's not right, because Eliza's bedroom is 42 square feet and her brother's bedroom is 40 square feet. And that tells me why, because she said that they're the exact same, but they're not, because hers is 42 and her brother's is 40, and that's all you had to use in your explanation to tell me why or why not she was not correct. Okay, so if you need to correct anything, make sure you do that before you move on to number 6. Okay, number 6 says Cliff draws a rectangle with a side length of 6 inches and an area of 24 square inches. What is the other side length, and how do you know? So now we're working with a rectangle that we already know the area for, and we know one side length, but we don't know the other. So think about, are you going to be using multiplication or division to help you find the answer to this? Because that's going to be how you tell me how you knew what the answer was. So make sure that you're including in your sentence how you knew, and make sure you're also including an area model where the side lengths are labeled, and you're using a question mark for the other side length because we're not sure what that is. And if you want, you can just write the total area of this rectangle inside the rectangle, just like we had on the front page of this problem set. So whenever you're ready to check your answer, you can push play. Okay, so this is what the area model should have looked like. You could have had the numbers switched just like we did in the previous ones. One side needed to be 6 inches and the other side needed to have a question mark. Make sure that on one side you did include inches, because we're not just working with square units, we are working with inches, so we do need to know that there is inches whenever we're working with this rectangle. And inside the rectangle, you should have put that the area was 24 square inches. And in your sentence, you should have said the other side length is 4 inches. And you could have done that or figured that out because you know that 6 times 4 equals 24, or you know that 24 divided by 6 is 4. So I would have taken either one of those equations to tell me that's how you knew what the answer was. Okay, you're going to be moving on to the exit slip. It's pretty much just what we did on the front side of the problem set here. Make sure that you're answering all parts of it before you bring it to me, and whenever you're finished, you may bring it to me so I can check it.